Students graduating with a doctoral degree will be greeted by Provost and Executive Vice President John Winsek and Interim Dean Jerry McMurtry. Gordon Snyder, Doctor of Philosophy, Natural Resources. Gordon Snyder is being hooded today after receiving his doctoral degree from the College of Forestry, Wildlife, and Range Sciences in 1976. He will be hooded by his major professor, Dr. Michael Falter. The dissertation title is The Northern Rocky Mountain Water Quality Benchmark System, a procedure for satisfying the natural, chemical, and physical quality of stream water. Robert Jeffrey Bonzer, Doctor of Athletic Training, will be hooded by Major Professor Dr. Russell Baker. Dissertation title, Evaluation and Treatment of Chronic Lower Extremity Musculoskeletal Conditions from a Regional Interdependence Perspective, a dissertation in clinical practice improvement. Christy Lauren Hancock, Doctor of Athletic Training, will be hooded by Major Professor Dr. Russell Baker. Dissertation title, Examining a Regional Interdependence Approach for the Treatment of Acute and Chronic Musculoskeletal Dysfunction, a dissertation of clinical practice improvement. Tyler Heather, Doctor of Philosophy, Bioinformatics, and Computational Biology, will be hooded by Professor Paul Hohenlohe. Dissertation title, Genetic Networks, Adaptation, and the Evolution of Genomic Islands of Divergence. Bethany Lynn Hansberger, Doctor of Athletic Training, will be hooded by Professor Russell Baker. Dissertation title, Evaluating Novel Manual Therapies for the Treatment of Lower Extremity Dysfunction and Pathology, a dissertation of clinical practice improvement. Robinetta Ashley Hudson, Doctor of Athletic Training, will be hooded by Professor Russell Baker. The dissertation title, Evaluating the Effects of the Mulligan Concept Manual Therapy in Athletic Training Practice, a dissertation of clinical practice improvement. Scott Eugene Landis, Doctor of Athletic Training, will be hooded by Professor Jeff Siegmiller. Dissertation title, An Epidemiological Observation, Non-Contact Interior Cruciate Ligament Injury Risk Prediction using Functional Movement Screen and Knee Abduction Moment, a dissertation of clinical practice improvement. Rick Allen Luch, Doctor of Athletic Training, will be hooded by Major Professor Russell Baker. Dissertation title, Evaluating a Regional Interdependence Approach for Treating Apparent Hamstring Tightness in Collegiate Athletes, a dissertation of clinical practice improvement. Edward G. Flathers, Doctor of Philosophy, Natural Resources, will be hooded by Major Professor Paul Gessler. Dissertation title, The Big Data Life Cycle in Ecoinformatics, Curation, Processing, and Analysis. Belinda Joan Sanchez, Doctor of Athletic Training, will be hooded by Major Professor Russell T. Baker. Dissertation title, A Patient-Centered Evidence-Based Approach to Athletic Training Clinical Practice. Valerie Felicia Stevenson, Doctor of Athletic Training, will be hooded by Major Professor Russell Baker. Dissertation title, Implementation of Evidence-Based Practice Within an Athletic Training Athletic Model, a dissertation of clinical practice improvement. Ebenezer Jones Mensa, Doctor of Philosophy, Chemistry, will be hooded by Major Professor Jacob Magellan. Dissertation title, Selective Reductions Directed by Rehydrated Alumina and Thiomethylation using Dimethyl Sulfoxide, an exploration of program, oh, excuse me, that's all. Gordon Cox, Doctor of Philosophy, Education, will be hooded by Major Professor Laura Holyoke. Dissertation title, An Exploration of Program Director Leadership Practices in Nationally Accredited Paramedic Education Programs. Alyssa K. Korsak, Doctor of Philosophy, Environmental Science, will be hooded by Major Professor Andrzej Paczynski. Dissertation title, Identification and Survival of Microbial Isolates Collected from the Viking Spacecraft Surfaces Subjected to Simulated Environmental Conditions of Mars, and a Conceptualized Model for the Advancement of Connecting Stakeholders in STEM Education. Arij Ahmed Al-Saimi, Doctor of Philosophy, Plant Science, will be hooded by Major Professor Robert Trepepi. Dissertation title, Improving Shoot Growth and Multiplication of Native Plants in Tissue Culture. Hani Iftikhar Al-Turkestani, Doctor of Philosophy, Computer Science, will be hooded by Major Professor Axel Krings. Dissertation title, Mitigation Strategies for Safety Applications in Vehicular Ad Hoc Networks Subjected to Jamming. Vanessa M. Martinez, Doctor of Philosophy, Education, will be hooded by Major Professor Damon Burton. Dissertation title, What Moves You? Re-examining the role of goals through development and validation of the reasons to exercise scale. Kevin Michael Bryant, Doctor of Philosophy, Education, is hooded by Major Professor Sharon Stoll. Dissertation title, The Effectiveness of a Character Education Program on Interscholastic Directors' Social Values and Moral Reasoning. Marian Edith Buzon, Doctor of Philosophy, Geology, will be hooded by Major Professor Mickey Gunter. Dissertation title, Talc Characterization, a Provenance Study. Lubia Kahas Daglinovich, Doctor of Philosophy, Environmental Science, will be hooded by Major Professor Christine Moffat. Dissertation title, From Trout to Mollusks, Life Cycle Assessment, Socioeconomic Attributes, and Ecosystem Services Surrounding Sustainable Aquaculture. Hannah Marks, Doctor of Philosophy, Bioinformatics, and Computational Biology, will be hooded by Major Professor David Tank. Dissertation title, Disentangling Drivers of Floristic Diversity in Island Systems Using Phylogenetic Approaches. Timothy Edward McGinn, Doctor of Philosophy, Neuroscience, will be hooded by Major Professor Deb Stemkamp. Dissertation title, Regeneration of Bipolar Cells in the Adult Zebrafish Retina. Francine Mejia, Doctor of Philosophy, Natural Resources, will be hooded by Major Professor Alexander Kent Fremier. Dissertation title, Examining the Spatial and Temporal Variability of Stream Primary Production at the Watershed Level and its Implications for Juvenile Fish Rearing. James David Muirhead, Doctor of Philosophy, Geology, is hooded by Professor Eric Mittelstadt. Dissertation title, Tectonic Magmatic Controls on Volcanism, Rifting, and Volatile Release. Deepak Chand, Doctor of Philosophy, Chemistry, is hooded by Major Professor Janine Shreve. Dissertation title, Quest for Green Energetic Materials, Green Rocket Fuels, and Polyiodo Biocides. Adateo Mustafa, Doctor of Philosophy, Chemistry, is hooded by Professor Ray von Wandruska. Dissertation title, Using Electroionization Mass Spectrometry for Understanding Metal-Ligand Interactions, Silver and Copper Complexes with Organophosphorus Pesticides, and Uranium, Vanadium, and Iron Complexes with Amidoxime Ligands. Bradley Ray Clark, Doctor of Philosophy, Education, is hooded by Major Professor Brant Miller. Dissertation title, Technology Integration in Technology-Rich Active Learning Spaces. Jesse Oldroyd, Doctor of Philosophy, Mathematics, is hooded by Major Professor Samantika Datta. Dissertation title, Generalizations and Approximations of Equiangular Tight Frames. James Cockerham, Doctor of Philosophy, Mathematics, is hooded by Major Professor Frank Gao. Dissertation title, Metric Entropy under Generalized Convexity. Ik-Ju Park, Doctor of Philosophy, Entomology, is hooded by Major Professor Mark Schwartzlander. Dissertation title, The Role of Olfactory and Visual Cues in the Host-Finding Behavior of a Near Monophagous Specialist Insect Herbivore Considered for Biological Control of Weeds. Hua Fong, Doctor of Philosophy, Bioinformatics, and Computational Biology, is hooded by Major Professor Celeste Brown. Dissertation title, Sample Size Estimation and Type 1 Error Correction in Genetic Association Studies. Mark William Pearsall, Doctor of Philosophy, Geology, is hooded by Major Professor Ken Sprinky. Dissertation title, Petrological and Geophysical Investigations of Basalt Properties in the Snake River Plain, in the Moscow-Pullman Aquifer, and in lunar impact craters. Chris Bauer, Doctor of Philosophy, Soil and Land Resources, will be hooded by Major Professor Jody Johnson Maynard. Dissertation title, The Resilience of the Palouse Prairie. Hector Tavares, Doctor of Philosophy, Environmental Science, will be hooded by University Distinguished Professor Nilsa Bosque Perez. Dissertation title, Economic Valuation, Land Use Change, and Ecosystem Services in the Nicoya Peninsula of Costa Rica. Levi Kiesecker, Doctor of Philosophy, Environmental Science, will be hooded by University Distinguished Professor Nilsa Bosque Perez. Dissertation title, Landscape Effects on Bee Pollinators in a Coffee Agroforestry System. Paul Rhodes, Doctor of Philosophy, Entomology, will be hooded by Major Professor Sanford Eigenbrode and Lisette Waits. Dissertation title, The Genetic and Community Structure of the Native Bees in the Palouse Prairie. John Severson, Doctor of Philosophy, Natural Resources, is hooded by Professor Carrie Vierling. Dissertation title, Sage Grouse Response to Conifer Encroachment and Management. Catherine Shine, Doctor of Philosophy, Biology, is hooded by Major Professor Craig McGowan. Dissertation title, Ursidae Locomotion, Right Down to the Bare Bones. Katie Taylor, Doctor of Philosophy, Education, will be hooded by Professor Chantal Vella. Dissertation title, Associations Among Sitting, Physical Activity, Resilience, and Quality of Life in Inflammatory Bowel Disease Patients and Healthy Controls. Dustin Van Hofwegen, Doctor of Philosophy, Microbiology, Molecular Biology, and Biochemistry, is hooded by Major Professor Sam Minnick. Dissertation title, Trait Variability in Bacteria, Studies on DNA Methylation and Selective Amplification. Monsieur Shao, Doctor of Philosophy, Natural Resources, is hooded by Major Professor and Dean Kurt Pregetzer. Dissertation title, The Effect of Chronic Nitrogen Deposition on Tree Leaf and Fine Root Decomposition.